Cool. Hi, Marilyn. Welcome to Quantum Action here. Marilyn is an astrologer, but not an astrologer as most of you would probably think or perceive astrology. This is very, very different. And Marilyn is going to explain how she came about to do this, the history of astronomy and astrology and how they were used to be one thing. We're going to talk about what's happening in the world today, but what's happening in foreseeable future, so that those of you that are watching can sort of understand where the markets are going financially, where the world is going from a social standpoint or whatever, and what you can do in your life to stay safe, stay prosperous, and and keep moving forward with joy. Marilyn, welcome to Quantum Action. Tell us a bit about yourself and how you got involved in this special type of astrology, and explain it to listeners and watchers.
Great. It's a pleasure to meet you. And I viewed one of the podcasts on your channel, and I really like that you're putting forward a lot of positive self-help improvement sort of situations and talking with people that do things like that.
Yeah.
So many years ago, probably in the early 1990s, I started just awakening to some of my spiritual gifts. And I actually started out as a physical education teacher, thought that's what I wanted to be, took 2 years to find my dream job, went out and taught. And within the year, I was like, this is not where I'm supposed to be. And I knew that. I loved the coaching, the teaching was, I was very self-disciplined. The students were not. I was the only woman in the PE department. So it was tough. So I thought I had wasted my whole college career. I had a scholarship, full ride scholarship, didn't have to pay a thing for college. Many years went by and I was like, what am I going to do with my life? Well, I didn't realize that I hadn't wasted that college career. It would give me a spiritual or a physical foundation, because later I was going to have these spiritual gifts open up to work with the emotional, spiritual aspects of the body. So I had a lot of experiences that kind of taught me things like that. And in about the mid 2000s, I became a master herbalist. I started my own businesses. I started reading, in Culpeper from like the 15, 16, 1700s.
So you studied with John Chris, didn't you study at the School of Natural Healing?
Yes.
Yeah, my wife studied there as well. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and so I would read these things about this herb is under the influence of Venus, or this one under Mars, and this one Saturn, and it was like right over my head. So at the same time, I just happened to meet this man named Reed Dunbar, and he at the time was in his 60s. He had probably spent at that time 35 years studying the spiritual astrology stuff. And a lot of people, when you think about the word astrology, astronomy and astrology used to be the same thing. Somewhere 100 or 200 years ago, they got divided as if astronomy is good and astrology is bad. Today, most people will go to an astrologer for who am I going to marry? What career should I have? How am I going to make my money? Which you can tell some things like that. But a lot of things have to do with free will and agency. So I went to get a reading by him. A lot of my friends said, go get Reed to do your chart. And as a Christian, I was like, I don't know if I believe in that stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, so many people had such a positive experience that I went. And immediately he puts this piece of paper in front of my face and says, you're supposed to be a healer, don't you? And I said, I just put that word on business cards. And I know that about myself. But where were you 20 years ago when I was trying to figure that out? And where does it say that on that paper? How do you know that about me? And he was telling me things about who I was looking to marry and at what age these things happened to me. And I'm like, at the end of the reading, I said, can I learn to do this? This is absolutely amazing to me, because it was very spiritual. It was not temporal at all. And I knew the spiritual things about myself. So he says, I just happened to be teaching a class. It was the last class he ever taught. And I would go to his house and I would talk to he and his wife, and I'd bribe them with vegetables every summer when I would visit, as long as they would let me stay 2-3 hours, and I would pick his brain. And at one point I said, whatever you have made up, these documents, these copies, can I borrow them, go to the copy store and bring them back? And he let me copy everything he had. And so that is what I now teach from. And when I met him, I just became so enamored with this art, this science, as well as an art. And I bought book after book, and you should see my libraries. My husband thinks I spend too much money on books, and I tell him, you know, money spent on education is never wasted, ever.
Yeah, if you take that with you when you die, you don't take the physical book, but you take the knowledge you acquired from the book with you.
Yes. So I would write my own documents, do my own study. I mean, for years, I got up super early in the morning and I would research things and I would make my own documents. And so I began teaching in the middle, like 2016. 2018, I actually have videos that came out. And so if you're interested, these are called Reading Heaven's Time Clock.
Okay.
And there's a beginner series, an intermediate series. I now have students that are ready for advanced stuff. So I'm getting ready to teach advanced, but those will probably be like in person or Zoom.
Okay.
I don't know that I will record those yet.
Okay.
So people can look on my website and find out a bit about me, and that is whitelightherbals.com.
Below here. Yeah.
Okay, great. You've got that. I can't see it, but that's terrific.
Yeah.
So I have been doing that, and that reading the stars and the timing of the stars, you know, in the scriptures, it talks about that time is measured only unto man. And I have just so delved into beyond what Reed taught me about Jupiter. Like Jupiter goes around every 12 years approximately. And so the first 12 years of your life, you lay your physical foundation. If you have a good physical foundation, you're probably going to have a good, strong body all of your life. And you've met people who, you know, they don't get fed and they have a very weak body all of their life. And it's really difficult to change it after that. Your second 12 years are your intellectual development. So we often get our career and college training. Third 12 is your emotional development. You're married, you're starting to have children, you're starting to, you know, learn to find your place in the world. Fourth 12 is your spiritual development cycle. So a lot of people who kind of have no sense of spirituality when they're younger, or they stray from what they're taught, you know, they stray from what their parents teach them. They're now at the age when they have teenagers and they're questioning spirituality. So that's your about age 48. Then you go through your fifth cycle, which is your philosophical development. You basically create a philosophy about the first 4 Jupiter trips that you've had and your experiences. Then around 60, which is kind of the age that I just hit, you're the wise old person. You have this philosophy in hand, and you start another cycle where you become a mentor to other people, or a service cycle. Those are your last 2 cycles, and they often kind of combine together. So I started noticing too these Saturn repeats. And I happened to be going to my 30th reunion one year, my high school reunion. And I started noticing that the kids that dated in college had married other people, divorced, and now they're dating each other again. And I just thought that was so strange. And so my husband and I are laying in bed one morning, and I said, where were we 30 years ago? And we thought back, and 30 years ago, it was May, we had just met.
Okay.
So I had 4 children, and the baby was leaving in June. We were going to be a couple for the first time in 30 years again. And I looked ahead. We met in May. We got engaged in August, married in November, had a baby the following August. I looked ahead. Baby was coming home from an overseas adventure in August. We were going to be a threesome again, an exact 30-year repeat, 30 years later. I said, I better start paying attention to this 30-year repeat. I mean, you look at Ukraine right now. Ukraine is going through a 30-year repeat of their independence all over again. Okay. And 30-year repeats, I would encourage anybody that is listening to this, take your age, subtract 30 years from it. You are literally going through a repeat. And some of us are on highs, some of us are on lows, because we're always revisiting things, because Saturn is the great teacher. So we revisit things through Jupiter cycles, through Saturn cycles. The other planets like Uranus. Uranus is a 84-year cycle to go complete, but at some point you're at a halfway point and you're about in your early 40s. And in English, we call this the midlife crisis, because you're looking at life at the halfway point.
Mhm.
And a lot of people who haven't made wise decisions, they're at this point and they say, gosh, I don't think I want to live the other half of my life like this. I am going to do a 180. And they break out of a pattern. That's what Uranus is about. It is liberation, it is change. And I can tell you from your birth chart, which I would have to know your birth minute in order to do that,
Mhm.
exactly on which axis that is going to be. Is it career and home? Is it the anti-aging thing? Is it relationships? You know, where is that going to happen for you?
Mhm.
But if you've made wise decisions in your life, there really isn't a big change. You don't have to make a big or have a big midlife crisis.
Mhm.
And then Pluto returns. Pluto goes around every almost 250 years, about a 248-year cycle.
Mhm.
And so it doesn't go all the way around our chart because we don't live that long. In fact, it probably doesn't even go halfway because it is elliptical. It's not circular like all the other planets travel.
Yeah.
So America happens to be going through a Pluto repeat exactly this year.
Okay.
What was going on 248 years ago? America was having a revolution. We were breaking free from Britain. We
Yeah.
were establishing our own country. And so you find these planetary repeats always happen. Every country is going to have their own birth. So we had our birth in 1776.
So it's almost like the seasons. You know that, after summer, you're going to have autumn and then you're going to go into winter. So the stars kind of govern also our lives in this sense. It's a bit like the weather then. Some people think astrology is like, oh, I need to play these numbers on the lottery and I'm going to win next week. No, it's not that. It's more like when you're a pilot and you have to go somewhere, you want to check the weather. And if the weather's really, really bad, you don't go. If the weather's kind of iffy, you figure out how you're going to navigate through that bad weather. And that's the way, going by what you're saying, this is kind of my way of explaining it. Let's put it that way.
So I teach these things. I say that you can literally read time. You can look back in time. You can look forward in time. You can see, when are these things going to happen to me? They have two really thick books called an ephemeris.
Yeah,
and
I've used those before. When I studied astral navigation, the ephemeris. So I did a whole year.
Oh, really? You use
astral
them
navigation. Astral navigation. Yeah, because I went to an aviation college in Italy, and one of the subjects we had to study was astral navigation. We never went out and actually did stuff with the sextant, but we had to study the whole theory and everything, and then take an exam. So I had to do all that, and the exam you had to work out coordinates and this and that, navigate as they used to back in the day, using the sextant on an
Well, now we have computers, so I don't even have to like do all that mathematical calculation, which is great.
Yeah.
But I do what's called a deluxe chart, where I literally look into your time clock for 90 years, should you live to be 90 years. I don't know when you're going to die. I think we actually have many checkout options. We've all heard of people that leave and they go to the other side and somebody says, what are you doing here? It's not your time. So I just look through age 90 and I kind of help you foresee. Like I tell people, you're going to have a heads up where other people don't. You're going to know exactly what dates and what time spans this is going to happen to you. And when I started doing that, sometimes you're going to have one date. Because planets move forward in retrograde, sometimes you're going to have 3 dates. I started noticing a pattern when I looked at the 3 dates. Between the first date and the last date was a human gestation period, about 10 months. On occasion, you're going to have 5 dates, and usually that's with an outer planet like Neptune or Pluto. And that time span of growth opportunity for you can be up to 1 year and 3/4. So it was just interesting to look at patterns. I loved math when I was in high school, and I loved the math. I loved the geometry of it.
Yeah. No, very, very interesting. So if America is going through this 248-year second cycle, and that's when the revolution happened back then, what do you foresee seeing happening in America in the next few years? Because we see there's a big divide now in America with the people supporting Trump and the people that are against him, and there's kind of a division, and they're blaming it all on him. And there's
well,
a lot
again we have the two sides. Okay, just like we had the British and the French and the Americans. They weren't really Americans, but they were the free men or whatever they called themselves at the time. It's really interesting about Donald Trump, because in the classes that I teach, we have gone over several charts of presidents.
Yeah.
Here happens to be Donald Trump's chart.
Okay.
And you're going to notice with presidents, they are going to have a lot of planets in what we call this eastern horizon.
Okay.
When we look at a chart, the eastern horizon where you were born, we look at that.
Yeah.
This would be the south, this would be the west, and this would be the north.
Okay.
So you're going to see a lot of leadership ability.
Okay.
And Donald Trump has his sun at the top, but the planet that's even closer to the top of his chart is the planet Uranus.
Okay.
Now, Uranus is the only planet in our solar system that doesn't spin like any other planet. It breaks patterns. So most planets spin like this, like the Earth. Uranus tips on its side and it spins top to bottom.
Okay.
So when you're ruled by that planet at the top of your chart, that is what you're going to be recognized for. He will never be the typical leader or president or whatever position he has, father, builder. His destiny is to build something that outlasts his life. When he said, "Make America Great Again," I looked at his chart.
Yeah.
He has a full 11th house and a full 10th house.
Yeah.
11th house is about society and helping the group.
Yeah.
And Make America Great Again, all of these planets are in Cancer, and Cancer has to do with the domestic scene.
Okay.
Which is not just your family personally, but your country and the state of the world.
Okay.
And so all of these things that he is spewing are just like out of his life. He was born with these things. He was born with these potentials and he uses those.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, especially when you're ruled by that planet Uranus up there at the top of the chart, they'll just say, you're not doing it the traditional way. And I teach people, if that is in your chart, which I think you told me it's in yours.
It's in my chart, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. You should say thank you, because I'm not supposed to be like everybody else.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to do the different thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is what quantum action is all about. It's flying outside the cube, moving outside the cube or the box. It's not, if we think of society and all the different people that have changed things, for example, Thomas Edison with the light bulb, Christopher Columbus, Einstein, all these different people that have done something that has benefited mankind and changed the way we do things. They've all been thinkers that thought differently. They didn't think like the mass. They probably had Uranus in their chart. Because it takes an innovator, it takes somebody like Steve Jobs to invent the iPad.
Right.
Yeah, and when he invented the iPad, he did no market research. He said, "I'm going to build this thing, and people are going to want it."
Yeah.
And you have to have, a bit of, you need guts, you need intellect. You have to be a certain type of personality to be able to go against everybody and everything, and then prove you're right.
Yeah. And so a lot of my business has been by word of mouth. A lot of people have a chart done and they will just be kind of floored that I don't even know them. I haven't met them, because a lot of people that I do charts for, I just digitally upload them. I've never talked to them. All I know is their name, their birth date, their birth time, their birthplace, and where they now live. And I just, read it and I send it to them. And so those continue to be requested kind of at a higher rate than I can do.
Yeah. I remember it took me almost a year to book myself in.
Yeah. I was going to say at least 9 months to sometimes 12 months is your wait. Because some people will have a basic chart, some people will have a deluxe chart, and I'm finding a lot more people want a deluxe chart than I would have thought, and they take me twice as long. They take me 2 days instead of a day.
Yeah.
So, but they're just a lot of fun, and I get so much feedback from people, and then they want to learn. It's like they would say to me, there's no way that you could know things like that about me because you've never talked to me.
But it's very scientific what you do. This is the interesting thing. So go back to America.
It is a science as well as an art.
Yeah, the revolution that happened 248 years ago. And
so as to what's going to happen in the US, I don't know, but we're going through a repeat. We're choosing sides, basically. Yeah, and it's always the light and the dark, and it's always about progress. It's always about personal growth. So we all have to make a choice.
There's a battle, and I just say to people, if we look at what's happening in the world today, it boils down to a battle between good and evil, between those that believe in God and those that don't. That's ultimately and then how you believe in God, whether you're a Buddhist or whether you're a Christian or whatever it may be. It's down to that division. And you need to make a choice. Which side are you going to be on?
Right, exactly.
So
we're always going to see these repeats going on in history, whether you live in the country or whether it's your own life, you see these repeats constantly.
So Marilyn, how does someone's free will play into this? Because obviously when you do this, some astrologers, what they say, oh, this is going to happen to you on the 5th of January 2031. And, oh, you're gonna have a car crash. I mean, friends of mine have been to fortune tellers and whatever, and they've been told things, and it's just almost ruined their lives when they hear something like that. But explain how yours is different and how your approach to this is very different. It's more like the weather, as I was saying before, than like there's going to be a thunderstorm next Wednesday.
I teach people that there is a positive and the negative to every planet and every sign, and I basically read the planets in the houses in the signs. And I say, I don't know how you use this. Ideally, it could be used like this. Negatively, it could be used like that, you know. And then there are aspects between other planets, which sometimes can help, like if it's a trine, if it's a square, it's going to be a difficulty in your life. So after I had my star chart reading, I took my husband. I said, I want Reed to do your chart. And he sat there for at least half the time with his arms crossed, which is a very closed person. At one point, I saw him all of a sudden lean in and look at the paper and uncross his arms. And after the appointment, as we were getting in the car to go home, he thanked me. He said he had this grand cross set up. There are 4 planets exactly opposite each other. And Reed described this balance that he had to maintain between those 4 areas of his life. And he said that really helped me understand my life and why I always could not get out of balance with those 4 things, because he could see that. And so you can see things like that. I teach you to read things like that.
Yeah, it's very useful to understand yourself and understand your potential. And that's what I found with mine. It's understanding and putting more clarity on things as well. Sometimes you're kind of, should I go down this path or that path? And then, you know, when you say, well, this path because, and then you think back and you think, well, actually, there's some signs in my past that actually tell me that that path over there is better than this one. And that's the utility I found. But ultimately, it's always my choice. And that's the thing that I thought was and encouraged me to contact you, because I thought this is not astrology as the TV people tell you about it. This is very, very different. And this is the way it's supposed to be. It's almost like this science has been censored or given a bad rap when it hasn't.
Or redacted.
Redacted to make it look silly or for people that are very intelligent, kind of thing.
So in Abraham's time, when his son was going to be born, all of the men were in a circle in his camp, and they looked up at the stars and they said, this is going to be a very important young man. And that was not Ishmael. That was his other son.
So back in the day, they knew that you could read in the stars someone's destiny.
So way back with Enoch was God's messenger. His city was so righteous it was taken up. So from Enoch it went to Thoth in Egypt. It went to Esdras in the Middle East. Then it became Mercury in Greece. And actually the word Hiram, the man's name Hiram, is a form of being a God's messenger. So we've always had this, but like you said, it's been hidden. I like to call it redacted. You know, the good parts have been taken out and kind of rewritten over. So it makes you think something else about it. So I was on that quest to just find, well, where's the truth in it? And I tell people, I don't know what you're going to choose. I never see what you choose, because that is up to you. I've heard of other people who do charts and they'll tell you that you're going to get a divorce. And it's like, you know, you can't tell people things like that.
No, you can't, because it's their choice. Ultimately,
it is their choice.
Otherwise, because this was my dilemma with when I was studying this quite heavily many years ago. And I moved away from it because all the astrology kind of thing that I saw is like, well, because I was studying the paranormal and psychology and astrology on one side, and tarot card reading and whatnot. And then on the other, I was studying all the personal development stuff. And so my ultimate question was, well, do I actually have a choice? Do I have free will? Because it looks like if down this path, your life is already mapped out. But if you go in the other direction, you can almost accomplish anything that you set into. So I thought, scrap this, let's go down this path.
Yeah.
But what you're actually saying is, well, actually astrology can help you down the personal development path. It tells you more about who you are, more about what your talents are. And so once you recognize those things, then you can really make the most of this life on earth.
Yes. And so in the scriptures, it talks about fixed stars. And I remember the first time I read that, well, what are fixed stars?
Fixed stars, okay.
Well, the word planet means wandering star in Greek. Fixed stars are always like at that degree of the heavens in your lifetime. They will move, but they are fixed in your lifetime. They basically are only going to move like 1 degree in 72 years. So you're never going to really see it move.
Okay.
So on occasion, when I do the deluxe charts, you have a planet that lines up with a fixed star because it's moving in that fixed star. And every fixed star has a backstory to it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, what are you to do with that planet? Well, my destiny happened to be aligned with a fixed star that had to do with healing. It was Hygeia, healing, being a healer. And it was interesting that my name, even because my destiny is in Sagittarius, when I was 15, I wanted to be a ice skater, but I fell and broke my leg at my 15th birthday party. And the only class that they could stick me in PE was archery class. And at Sagittarius is the archer. Well, I had never done archery, but boy, I was good at it.
Yeah.
And they said, you're so good at this, you should go out for the team. And so by the time I graduated from high school, I placed first in the state.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was something that I never would have thought to do, you know, but I literally fell into it. Yeah,
but if you'd had your star chart back then, it would have probably told you.
Maybe.
Maybe, yeah. Or at least
it's kind of hidden in there.
Yeah, hidden in there.
Yeah. But even by the phases of the moon, you see when you're going to have successes in your life, when you're going to have full moons, when you plant a seed, and then about 16 and a half years later, you will harvest whatever seed you planted.
Yeah, because there is a type of farming. There is a type of farming which encourages you to plant seeds when the moon is in a certain position, and also to harvest certain days of the month.
One of my friends gave me one of those posters, and I put it right over the bathroom so I can sit and I can observe it. And I started noticing that you always plant in a, especially for fruits, in a waxing moon and in a water sign, when the moon is in a water sign.
Yeah, so this is science. This is what a lot of indigenous people do.
Yeah, that your crops are going to be more full if you plant with the moon.
Yeah, so why can't the planets influence our lives as well?
Yeah, and so when I became a master herbalist, I started making formulas, and on my webpage it says all formulas are made with the moon. You start them on a new moon, and as that moon grows, that moon pulls that constituent out of that herb into your like tincture or oil.
Yeah, my wife does the same. She makes you're probably familiar with the super tonic that Dr. Schultz makes with garlic and that. So she always makes sure she gets the organic ingredients and then makes it when there's a new moon.
Right.
So she mixes it because it's more powerful if you do it on that day than if you do it a few days later or sooner.
Yeah. So she knows, she's experienced it.
Yeah. So there's no reason why it can't influence our lives as well. So based off of the way the world is going at the moment, I mean, what could someone do? Because a lot of people have, especially with all these lockdowns and everything, people are very pessimistic and they're very thinking that the world is going to end soon. Russia's going to bomb America, and next after they've done the Ukraine, and China is going to invade Taiwan and all this kind of thing. What do you see in the charts, and what's your recommendation that people do to stay safe, to be prosperous?
So everybody is in a different place. Sometimes planets will move in the heavens, and because you don't have anything at those degrees or in those signs, it's really not going to affect you. Yeah. And other people, it will be a very powerful effect.
So what you're saying is someone sitting in Wyoming that's watching this right now, that's up in some town in Wyoming, they don't have to be too concerned about what's happening between Russia and the Ukraine. It's not really going to affect their life.
Yeah. Everybody, it will affect differently.
Yeah.
But you can learn to read those things and foresee when will it affect you and how long will that be. because every planet will go through a certain house a different length of time. Like some of them, like the moon every 2.5 days, Mars about every 2 months, Jupiter will take a year, Neptune will take 14 years. So it's just timing. It's just math. It's simple math, addition and subtraction. You know, you don't have to have a degree in math to do this.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they were not confident in math as a student. And I said, it's just addition and subtraction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or sometimes simple multiplication. You
Yeah.
know, from here to here is going to be 3 times 7, 7, 7, 7, 21 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Good. So it's always, so when someone's looking at the horoscopes that you read in magazines, that's not the sort of thing you should be looking at.
No, I don't think that they have anything to do with reality at all. I think people get stuck on them and they just hope that there's going to be something good for them, you know. And I think that's a state of mind. You know, you can create anything in your mind.
In order for you to help somebody, you need to get specific. When were you
Yes.
born? Where were you born? What time were you born? And then you can start going specific. And that's kind of astrology that can help somebody, not the astrology you read about in the magazines.
Yeah. And I had one lady that she was born in the car on the way to the hospital, and that always bothered her.
Oh, wow.
And I said, no, because when you're born, you have to be born at a certain minute. And because you won't miss your window when you're born at that minute. And I told her, I said, I had a dream as I was.
How did you figure out where she was born then, if the car was moving?
Oh, she didn't know. She didn't know the time, but it just bothered her that she wasn't born at the hospital. And so it was kind of relief to her that, you know, it had to be at that minute. She couldn't wait to the hospital.
Yeah. Because so what you're saying is that in God's design of everything, that we are sent as spirits down to earth at a specific time and location for a reason.
So I had this dream I told her about, and I said, in this dream, there was this, I don't know, heavenly planning table is what I call it. It was about 4 foot square. Yeah. And it had what seemed to be like a glass type of dome, a see-through dome. And I had 3 cards in my hand. And these cards looked like, I don't know, but they were coded with math. Okay. And I would put the card into the machine and I would watch my life and I'd say, you know, what happens if I go here at this time? And I would see everything move and I would see my whole life. Oh. And then I did another card. Well, what happens if I go here at this time? And I did that 3 times. Okay. And so I really believe that we foresee our life and we plan our life. Our life is not something God does to us, you know, to punish us. Yeah. It's something that we fully participate in planning for.
So it's almost like if I parachuted down into the desert and I know I'm going down into the desert, I need to take some extra water and certain type of equipment. But if I'm parachuted down into the mountains where it's snowy and cold, I need a different type of equipment.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
But I've started noticing that we all have these deja vu moments. I'm sure you have had them. I've had several. Yeah. And when we have these deja vu moments, it's like, do you remember this? You saw this in your planning. You're on your path.
So it's almost like we sat down with God, like a kid sits down with their parents to decide which college to go to and what vocation to study. We almost did the same thing back in heaven before we came to earth.
But I think you see your whole life.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very interesting. So what this star chart does then, it kind of reminds people of why they're here. And that's how it helps them. And then they have to make their decisions.
Yeah. I really focus when I do a star chart on what are your potentials? What are your spiritual gifts? I do look at a few fixed stars in a basic, but in a deluxe, I will look at anything connected to a fixed star. And there's a lot of stories. And so I ask people, like some people are connected to a fixed star that has to do with money. Some people are connected to a fixed star that has to do with control of animals. Yeah. You know, and they go into the circus or whatever. Yeah. Or control of birds in particular, or their talents developing late. There's all kinds of fixed stars that mean things. And so I ask them if you've noticed that in your life, because it is aligned with that. Yeah. I tell you what age those things will come up for you, which is what Reed was reading. And I was like, how do you know that?
So how did he learn these things? Is it something that he just
Oh, he went and went to conferences and listened to tapes and read books and yeah, same
So
way
he
that I
kind of
went.
developed this by studying different sort, like you're doing now. You're kind of taking what he did and you're taking it to the next level.
Yes. And I have other students that will take what I've taught them and take it to another level. And I'm just amazed at some of what the students are seeing that I didn't see or didn't learn.
Yeah. So is there awakening of people that coming to find out this kind of thing from you? I mean, are you seeing a trend of more people study to do what you do and people
it's
coming
pretty
to have
much,
this?
yeah, it's pretty much by word of mouth. I will have some people that clients, who want to learn it.
Yeah.
And other people, like they do the DVDs. I've got a Facebook group just specifically for the students, and we talk amongst ourselves.
Okay.
And I teach them what's going on in the heavens now. And have you noticed this, and we live in America. So I talk specifically about America or things that are going on in America.
Yeah.
And I teach them to look for the things in their own lives too.
Yeah. So talking about America then, so you say there is this division right now, like there was back during the revolution time. And this is just repeating itself and people just need to make a decision which side they're on.
Oh yeah. And last night was the first night Biden came on and spoke to America and actually kind of disrespected the people of America.
Yeah.
That was unusual. I've never heard a president do that. Usually they're trying to lift up America.
Yeah.
All of his comments divided America.
Yeah. The sad thing I see, I mean, I've always been a great believer in the US Constitution. I like the whole concept of America. The reason why a lot of people moved from here in England, I've got some of my ancestors that left England many years ago in the 1600s and moved to America. And the reason why they were moved is because they were seeking religious freedom. That's the primary reason.
Yeah.
In fact, there was an Argentinian minister many years ago. He said the difference between America, United States, and South America is that people came to South America looking for gold, and now they're poor. People went to North America looking for God, and that's why they're prosperous.
Yeah, yeah.
And I thought that's very, very, very interesting.
Yeah, and this whole thing about climate change, I mean, a lot of people who are Christian know that if you don't repent, you look back in the Bible about the blessings and the cursings.
Yeah.
This is a covenant land. This is a special land. And as a democracy and as a republic created here, this land can be taken to the rest of the world, but only based upon righteousness. And so it isn't climate change that's the problem. It is.
Well, but climate change is linked to the phases of the sun. I mean, it's a cycle. It's a solar cycle that's happening. It's not that we've polluted the air. It
has to do with our being unrepentant and really falling in our morals.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, a lot of the bad things that are happening is because man has made certain choices. But I know that the climate change thing that they're saying is happening caused by pollution. In reality, it's just a solar cycle that happened many years ago, and it's just repeating, like you were just explaining, the 84-year cycle, the 260-year cycle. It's just one of these cycles. It's just that the previous ones haven't been documented like we are now. And that's it. But do you think ancient cultures like the Egyptians and Sumerians and whatever, they knew about this thing about the star?
Oh yeah, and the Mayans knew about it. I mean, the Chinese knew about it. The Arabians, the Babylonians knew about it. Yeah, and they all have their own little histories in some way.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been trying to pull from.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say this because obviously this information has kind of been hidden, or as you call it, redacted. But now it's starting to surface again.
Yes.
And it's interesting to see that even I'm a great fan of the show Ancient Aliens. I like watching that. It's interesting. And I do believe that, we have and we are being visited by people from other planets. But when you look at history and you look at some of the stuff in the pyramids and other places, I mean, the pyramids itself, they were not built by the Egyptians. There's no way. When you look into it properly, when I say look into it, not what they taught you in high school or university, but when you look into, how these big pieces of granite were moved from one location to another, it's even difficult to do today. They even said that building a pyramid today with the precision that they did back then is impossible with today's technology. So who built those pyramids? And
there are watermarks in the pyramid that probably came from the time of the flood, time of Noah, which was way before Egypt.
Yeah. So then the question is, okay, well then, if they didn't build the pyramids, who built them and why did they build them? What are they? Because they're not tombs as they officially tell you they are. But when you look into that, it's very interesting to see that the story, well, what actually did happen is not what we're taught in school. So my next question is, well, do they actually teach us the truth in school? Because, you know, and
our history books,
history
books have been changing.
Yeah, and they're keeping us away from information. I mean, what you do, I'm finding it, because it's an ongoing process, a very useful document to have. The recording that you did in the chart. I mean, I don't understand everything of the chart, and I'm thinking of learning what you do, because it'd give me more understanding of who I am, and it may be something, you know, for the future. It's certainly, I think, an art and the science, as you call it, that more people should be learning, because I think it can help us and guide us. If how many people do I see that have got talent and ability and they don't use it, or they use it in the wrong way, and they don't get the most out of who they really are? And I say to myself, I don't want to come the day I die and get onto the other side and look back and say, oh, I could have done 55 times more things than I actually did. I wasted my time. I didn't use my talents. I put them to one side. I got distracted. No, I want to make the most of my time here. Good. And so I need to understand who I am and what talents I have, and then focus my time and energy in that direction. Yeah. Hence this podcast.
I applaud you for that.
Yeah. I mean, one of the reasons that I started this podcast 5-6 years ago. It had a different name back then. Then I stopped it. And then it wasn't until a few weeks ago, revisiting the star chart that when you're talking about me being a teacher of some sort, I thought, well, I need to resume that podcast and share some of the things that I'm learning with people, because there is a need for this type of information out there to help people to really figure out who they are and their potential. And if we were to all work to our true potential, the world would be a much different place.
Different place. Very different. Yeah.
Because you think of all the criminals, for example, that do forgeries. I think people that forge paintings and things like that, and then they get put in prison. Well, they could use their talent to make their own art. No, they get sidetracked and they decide to, you know, create a forgery and sell it for the original when it's not.
About money or fame or greed or personal.
Yeah. And so, you know, I think if we were to all understand and know who we are, then we would be doing the right things and not get lost in. And I think we would probably, because this is something that we designed together with God, I think it would keep more people on God's side than on the other guy's side.
I would hope so. My goal is to try and help people remember who they are and what they're here to do. What is your purpose? What is your destiny? What's your life path? Where are you going to have your greatest tests and lessons? How old are you going to be when these things happen?
Yeah. I mean, are you familiar with the artist Akiane?
Yes, she paints Christ.
Yeah. So you think of that young lady, who's not that young lady anymore, but anyway, you think if her parents hadn't helped her to develop that talent and focus on that and that only, if she'd been lost in going to school and learning maths and not being good at maths, what that would have done to her would have knocked her confidence in general, and maybe she wouldn't have had the confidence to go and paint. But her parents were very good. They encouraged her to paint, and this talent just flourished. And she has prospered, her family have prospered, but she has filled her life purpose. What would her life been like if she'd been busy doing mathematics at school? Those beautiful paintings would have never happened.
Yeah. They might have come out later.
Yeah, but maybe not as much and not as good. And so that's just an example there of someone finding their purpose really early and then just focusing and going for it and making a difference, not only in their life, but also we can benefit from that artwork. If she hadn't honed her talent, we wouldn't have been able to benefit from that. So
everybody is so unique. I usually tell you when I do your chart that no one has your setup for 26,000 years. I had twins, and they were both breached, so they took them 1 minute apart. And in that 1 minute, the moon has moved and the moon's nodes have moved. So they have a little difference in their charts, but the things that they choose to do are the same energies, but they express them differently. So one will draw beautifully and the other one will bake beautiful cakes, you know?
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. So we're all unique, and that's, and I encourage you all to reach out to Marilyn, because it's really interesting exercise to do. And don't think that this is astrology as you read about in the newspapers or what's seen on TV. It's very, very different. And astrology, in order to work, it needs to be very, very personal and very, very specific. So reading what Taurus or Sagittarius are going to do next month in your local newspaper is not going to help you.
Yep, exactly.
It's actually going to do the opposite. Marilyn, thank you very much for being on Quantum Action. I put the link here to your website, so hopefully you'll get a lot of people reaching out, and we hope to have you back on the show another time soon. Thank you very much.
It would be an honor.
And remember to subscribe, everybody. Catch you later. See you on the next one.